Today, we are going to enter one of the strangest and most mysterious true stories in modern history. It is the story of a man who walked into an airport like an ordinary passenger, entered a plane, demanded $200,000, and then disappeared into the dark sky. No one knows his real name. No one knows exactly where he landed. No one knows whether he survived. And even after many years of investigation, the mystery is still not completely solved. This man became famous as D.B. Cooper. But the strange thing is that he never called himself D.B. Cooper. The name he used was Dan Cooper. So how did this unknown man become one of the most famous criminals in history? How did he hijack a passenger plane without hurting anyone? And how did he vanish with a bag full of money? Today, we will explore the complete mystery of D.B. Cooper in 4 parts. The story begins on a cold afternoon in November 1971. Before we begin, remember that this is a real story, not a fake one. The D.B. Cooper hijacking really happened in 1971. But the mystery is still unsolved. By listening carefully, you can improve your English vocabulary, listening, and understanding. So, watch until the end, like this video, and subscribe to our channel. Part 1. The Mysterious Passenger. It was November 24th, 1971. The next day was Thanksgiving, an important holiday in the United States. Airports were busy. Many people were traveling home to meet their families. Parents were carrying bags. Children were walking beside them. Passengers were thinking about food, celebrations, and the people waiting for them. At Portland International Airport in Oregon, one man walked quietly towards the ticket counter. There was nothing unusual about him. He was wearing a dark business suit, a white shirt, and a thin black tie. He carried a small briefcase. He looked like a businessman traveling for work. He did not look nervous. He did not look dangerous. He calmly asked for a one-way ticket to Seattle. The flight was short. It normally took less than 1 hour. The man paid for the ticket in cash. When the airline employee asked for his name, he answered calmly, Dan Cooper. That was the name written on his ticket. The flight was Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305. The aircraft was a Boeing 727. At that time, it was an ordinary passenger plane, but it had one special feature. At the back of the plane, there was a set of stairs under the tail. These stairs could be lowered from inside the aircraft. Later, those stairs would become one of the most important parts of the mystery. Dan Cooper entered the plane and walked towards the back. He selected a seat near the rear of the passenger cabin. Around him, people placed their bags above their seats. Some passengers opened newspapers. Some looked through the windows. Others spoke quietly with family members or friends. Nobody paid much attention to the man in the dark suit. To everyone around him, he was only another passenger. That was exactly what he wanted. He sat quietly and ordered a drink. Bourbon and soda. He spoke politely. His voice was calm. His movements were controlled. He did not look like a man who was preparing to take control of an airplane. A young flight attendant named Florence Schaffner was working on the flight. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper called her towards his seat. When she came near him, he handed her a small note. At first, Florence did not read it. She thought it might be a telephone number. Sometimes passengers tried to give personal notes to flight attendants, so she placed it inside her pocket. Cooper watched her. Then he leaned slightly closer and spoke in a quiet voice. "Miss," You'd better look at that note. Florence looked at him. Then Cooper added a few words that changed everything. I have a bomb. Florence immediately opened the note. The message said that Cooper had a bomb and that she should sit beside him. She obeyed. She sat down next to the mysterious passenger. Cooper slowly opened his briefcase. Inside, Florence saw wires and several red objects that looked like sticks of dynamite. She could not know whether the bomb was real, but she could not take the risk. There were many innocent people on the plane. One wrong action could place every life in danger. Cooper closed the briefcase. Then, still speaking calmly, he explained what he wanted. He demanded $200,000 in $20 bills. He demanded 4 parachutes. And he wanted a fuel truck ready when the plane arrived in Seattle. Florence listened carefully. Then she carried his message to the cockpit. The pilots quickly understood the situation. Their plane had been hijacked. They contacted air traffic control. Soon the airline, the police, and the FBI knew what was happening. But the other passengers did not. They were told that the flight was delayed because of a small technical problem. The plane continued flying around the Seattle area while the authorities prepared the money and the parachutes. Minutes passed. Then more time passed. The passengers became confused. The journey from Portland to Seattle should have been short. Some passengers looked out of the windows. Others asked the flight attendants why the plane had not landed. The crew tried to keep everyone calm. Meanwhile, Cooper remained in his seat. He did not shout. He did not threaten the passengers. He did not move around the cabin in panic. He simply waited. This calm behavior made him even more frightening. He seemed to have planned everything. He knew exactly what he wanted. And he appeared confident that the authorities would follow his instructions. There was also a clever reason why Cooper requested 4 parachutes. If he had asked for only 1, the police might have secretly given him a damaged parachute. But by asking for 4, Cooper created uncertainty. The authorities could not know whether he planned to force a flight attendant or another crew member to jump with him. They could not risk giving him a parachute that might kill an innocent person. After several tense hours, the ransom money was finally prepared. There were 10,000 $20 bills. The total amount was $200,000. 4 parachutes were also collected. The plane was allowed to land at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. By that time, it was dark. Rain covered the airport. Heavy clouds filled the sky. The aircraft stopped in a distant area away from the main terminal. Cooper ordered the window shades to remain closed. He did not want the passengers or crew to see police officers moving outside. A vehicle approached the aircraft carrying the money and the parachutes. The items were brought inside. Cooper checked them carefully. He looked at the parachutes. He examined the money. Everything he had demanded was now in front of him. Then he kept his promise. He allowed the passengers to leave. One by one, they walked out of the aircraft and reached safety. Most of them had entered the plane believing it would be a normal flight. Only now did they understand that they had been sitting only a short distance away from a hijacker with a possible bomb. But the story was not over. Cooper kept several crew members on the plane. He ordered the pilots to prepare for another flight. This time, they would travel south towards Mexico City. He gave them very unusual instructions. The plane had to fly slowly. It had to remain at a low altitude. The landing gear had to stay down. The cabin could not be fully pressurized, and the rear stairs had to remain lowered. The pilots explained that the aircraft would not have enough fuel to reach Mexico City without stopping. They would need to land in Reno, Nevada to refuel. Cooper agreed. Outside the plane, police officers and FBI agents watched from a distance. They knew the hijacker was still inside. They knew he had the ransom money. They knew he had parachutes. But they did not know what he planned to do. Was he going to escape after landing somewhere? Was another person waiting for him? Or was he really planning to jump from the aircraft? The plane moved slowly towards the runway. Its engines became louder. Then the aircraft began to move faster. A few moments later, Flight 305 rose into the dark and rainy sky. There were no ordinary passengers on board now. Only the crew, the mysterious hijacker, the ransom money, the parachutes, and the possible bomb remained. As the plane flew south, Cooper moved toward the rear of the cabin. He began preparing the money. He examined the parachutes. Outside, the night was cold, dark, and dangerous. Below the aircraft were forests, rivers, and mountains. The crew had no idea what Cooper was about to do. But somewhere above the wilderness, the mysterious passenger was preparing to open the rear stairs and step into the darkness. Part 2. The Jump into Darkness. The plane continued flying south through the dark and rainy sky. Inside the cockpit, the pilots followed Cooper's instructions. They kept the aircraft low and slow. Cooper stayed near the back of the plane with the money and the parachutes. Only one flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, remained close to him. Cooper began preparing for his escape. He opened the bag containing the ransom money and tried to attach it securely to his body. He knew that jumping with a heavy bag would be difficult. If the money was not tied properly, he could lose everything in the air. He also examined the parachutes. One of them was a training parachute that could not be used for a real jump. But Cooper did not choose that one. He selected a working parachute and began putting it on. Then he did something strange. He cut some cords from another parachute. Investigators later believed that he may have used those cords to tie the money bag around his body. Tina watched him carefully. She tried to understand who this man was. Was he a trained skydiver? Was he a soldier? Had he worked with aircraft before? He seemed to understand some things about the plane, but he also made choices that appeared dangerous. Outside, the weather was becoming worse. The night was cold. Strong wind moved around the aircraft. Heavy clouds covered the sky. Below them were dark forests, rivers, mountains, and large areas with almost no lights. It was a terrible night for a parachute jump. Tina warned him that the back stairs could be dangerous during the flight. But Cooper was not worried. He told her that everything would be fine. After preparing the parachute and the money, Cooper ordered Tina to go to the cockpit. She walked away from him and joined the pilots. Before closing the cockpit door, she looked back one final time. Cooper was standing alone near the rear of the plane. He had the parachute on his body. The money was tied to him, and he was preparing to lower the stairs. The crew locked the cockpit door. From that moment, nobody saw Cooper again. A warning light appeared inside the cockpit. It showed that the rear stairs had been opened. Cold air rushed into the back of the aircraft. The pilots could feel the plane moving differently. They used the communication system to ask Cooper if he needed help. His answer was simple. No. The crew continued flying south. They did not know exactly what was happening behind them. Was Cooper still preparing? Was he standing on the stairs? Had he already jumped? A few minutes later, the pilots felt a sudden movement. The back of the aircraft lifted and then dropped slightly, as if a heavy weight had suddenly left the plane. The crew did not know it at that moment, but investigators later believed this was probably the moment when Cooper jumped. He stepped out of a moving passenger plane into complete darkness. There was no clear ground below him. There were no city lights to guide him. The wind was powerful. Rain hit his face. The parachute and the bag of money pulled heavily against his body. One small mistake could kill him. He could hit a tree. He could land in a river. He could fall onto rocks. His parachute might fail to open. The money could break free and disappear into the forest. But Cooper still jumped. The plane continued towards Reno, Nevada. The pilots did not turn around to search for him. They had to keep flying because they were not sure whether Cooper was still inside. They also did not know if the bomb was real. When the aircraft finally landed in Reno, police officers, FBI agents, and emergency workers surrounded it. They approached very carefully. Nobody knew what they would find inside. Was Cooper hiding in the cabin? Was the bomb still on the plane? Was he waiting to attack anyone who entered? Armed officers climbed into the aircraft. They searched every seat. They looked inside the bathroom. They checked the luggage areas. They examined the back of the plane. But Cooper was gone. The ransom money was gone. One parachute was missing. His black tie was left behind on a seat. A few other small items remained inside the aircraft, but there was no clear answer about his identity. The bomb was also gone. The crew members were safe. The plane had not been damaged seriously, but the hijacker had disappeared somewhere over the wilderness. The FBI immediately began one of the largest searches in American history. They tried to calculate the possible place where Cooper had jumped. They studied the aircraft's speed, direction, height, wind, and the exact moment when the pilots felt the sudden movement. But finding the correct location was extremely difficult. The plane had traveled many miles through bad weather. Even a small mistake in the calculations could change the search area completely. Police officers searched forests and roads. Helicopters flew over mountains and rivers. Agents spoke with people living in small towns. They asked residents whether they had seen a strange man, a parachute, a bag, or anything falling from the sky. Nothing was found. There was no body. There was no parachute. There were no clear footprints. There was no bag filled with money. It was as if Cooper had vanished in the air. The authorities faced an important question. Could he really have survived? Some investigators believed the jump was almost impossible. Cooper was wearing a business suit and ordinary shoes. He did not have proper clothing for the cold weather or the rough forest. The parachute he selected could not be controlled easily. This meant that the wind would decide where he landed. He jumped at night without clearly knowing what was below him. The area was filled with tall trees, deep water, and difficult land. These facts made many people believe that Cooper died during the jump or shortly after landing. Maybe his body was hidden deep inside the forest. Maybe he fell into a river. Maybe the money was carried away by water. But other people believed he survived. Perhaps he knew the area. Perhaps he had planned a secret escape route. Maybe someone was waiting for him on the ground. Maybe his ordinary clothes were part of the plan. making him look like a normal man after he landed. If he survived, he had completed an unbelievable escape. He had entered an airport using a false name. He had taken control of a passenger plane without hurting anyone. He had received $200,000. Then he had jumped into a stormy night and disappeared. But escaping from the plane was only the beginning. Every bill in the ransom money had been recorded. The FBI knew the serial number of every $20 bill given to Cooper. If he tried to spend the money, someone might recognize it. Banks, businesses, and police departments were warned to watch for the bills. The FBI also studied the black tie Cooper had left behind. They searched for fingerprints inside the aircraft. They interviewed the passengers and crew again and again. Artists created pictures of Cooper's face from the witnesses' descriptions. Soon, those pictures appeared across the country. Millions of people saw the face of the mysterious hijacker. But nobody could say with certainty who he was. Then the FBI began receiving names. Hundreds of people reported suspicious neighbors, relatives, former soldiers, pilots, criminals, and skydivers. Some suspects looked like Cooper. Some had experience with parachutes. Some disappeared around the time of the crime. Some suddenly appeared to have more money. But every possible answer created more questions. The investigation had only just begun. And somewhere in America, the real D.B. Cooper was either dead in the wilderness or quietly watching the world search for him. Part 3. The Hunt for D.B. Cooper. The FBI began checking every possible suspect. Some suspects were former soldiers, some were pilots. Some had experience with parachutes. Some looked very similar to the picture created from the witnesses' descriptions. Agents traveled across the country, interviewed thousands of people, and checked every small clue. But each time they found a possible suspect, something did not match. The person was in another place on the day of the hijacking. The face was different. The age was wrong. The person did not have the necessary knowledge. Or there was no real evidence connecting him to the plane. The FBI also searched the area where they believed Cooper may have landed. Teams walked through thick forests. Helicopters flew above rivers and mountains. Officers searched roads, farms, and small towns. But the search area was enormous. The land was difficult and dangerous. There were tall trees, deep valleys, cold rivers, and places where very few people ever went. If Cooper had died there, finding him would be extremely difficult. Years passed. The mystery became more famous. People wrote books about Cooper. Television shows discussed the case. Private investigators created their own theories. Some believed Cooper was an experienced skydiver. Others believed he only had basic knowledge and became lucky. Some people thought he was connected to the military. Others thought he worked in the aircraft industry because he knew unusual details about the Boeing 727. One important clue was the type of plane he selected. The Boeing 727 had stairs under the tail of the aircraft. These stairs could be lowered from inside the cabin. Cooper also appeared to know that the aircraft could continue flying while the stairs were open. This was not something that most ordinary passengers knew. It suggested that Cooper had studied the plane or worked around aircraft before. But investigators also noticed that he made some strange mistakes. He jumped during bad weather. He jumped at night. He did not ask for a helmet. He did not wear proper boots or warm clothing. He chose a parachute that was difficult to control. These choices made some experts believe he was not a professional skydiver. Maybe Cooper knew enough to create the plan, but not enough to understand how dangerous the jump truly was. Then, almost 9 years after the hijacking, something surprising happened. In 1980, a young boy named Brian Ingram was spending time with his family near the Columbia River in Washington. While playing in the sand, Brian discovered 3 groups of old $20 bills. The money was damaged and partly buried. His family contacted the authorities. The FBI checked the serial numbers. The numbers matched the ransom money given to D.B. Cooper. For the first time, some of the missing money had been found. This discovery created new excitement. How did the money reach the riverbank? Did Cooper land near the river? Did he lose the money during the jump? Did he fall into the water? Or did someone bury the money there years later? Nobody knew. The location of the money did not clearly match the original search area. This made the mystery even more confusing. Investigators searched around the riverbank, hoping to find more money, parachute material, clothing, bones, or anything connected to Cooper. But they found no clear answer. Only a small part of the $200,000 was discovered. The rest of the money was never found, and no other ransom bills were clearly reported in normal circulation. This was very strange. If Cooper survived, why did he not spend the money? Perhaps he was afraid that the serial numbers would lead the FBI to him. Maybe he slowly spent the money in places where people did not check the bills. Perhaps the money was destroyed by weather. Or perhaps Cooper died with most of the money still attached to him. The FBI continued investigating for decades. They studied the black tie left on the plane. They examined possible fingerprints. They checked DNA evidence. They investigated many famous suspects, but none could be proven to be D.B. Cooper. The man who had entered the airport as an ordinary passenger remained without a real name. Part 4. Did D.B. Cooper survive? The biggest question was still unanswered. Did D.B. Cooper survive the jump? There are strong reasons to believe that he did not. The night was cold, dark, and rainy. The wind was powerful. Cooper was wearing a business suit and ordinary shoes. He could not control his parachute very well. He did not know exactly where the plane was when he jumped. Below him were forests, rivers, mountains, and rough land. Even an experienced skydiver could have died in those conditions. Cooper also carried a heavy bag containing $200,000. The bag could have made the jump more difficult. It might have changed the way he fell. The money could have pulled away from his body. He could have landed badly and become seriously injured. If Cooper died in a remote area, nature may have hidden the evidence. His parachute could have become trapped in trees. His body could have fallen into water. Animals, weather, and time could have destroyed many clues. But there are also reasons to believe that he survived. Cooper appeared calm throughout the hijacking. He carefully planned many parts of the crime. He selected a plane with rear stairs. He requested several parachutes. He knew how he wanted the aircraft to fly. He waited until the passengers were safe before beginning his escape. He may have chosen the dark and bad weather because it made it more difficult for police to follow him. Perhaps he knew exactly what he was doing. Maybe he landed safely, removed the parachute, hid the money, and walked away before the search began. He may have changed his appearance, returned to his normal life, and never told anyone the truth. Over the years, many people claimed that their father, husband, brother, friend, or neighbor was D.B. Cooper. Some people told stories before they died. Some suspects looked similar to the famous picture. Others had military or parachuting experience. But a good story is not the same as proof. The FBI needed fingerprints, DNA, the parachute, the ransom money, or another strong piece of evidence. None of the suspects provided a complete answer. In 2016, after investigating the case for around 45 years, the FBI stopped actively working on it. The agency decided to use its resources for cases with more immediate needs. But the case was not completely forgotten. The FBI said that it would examine important new evidence if something meaningful appeared. Today, the mystery remains unsolved. We still do not know Cooper's real name. We do not know where he landed. We do not know what happened to most of the money. And we do not know whether he lived or died. D.B. Cooper became famous because he seemed to disappear completely. He did not hurt the passengers. He did not fire a weapon. He did not leave a clear identity behind. He simply entered an airport, hijacked a plane, took $200,000, and jumped into the darkness. Maybe he died that night. Maybe he escaped and lived quietly for many years. Maybe the final evidence is still hidden somewhere in a forest, under the ground, or at the bottom of a river. And perhaps one day someone will discover the parachute, the missing money, or a secret document that finally reveals the truth. Until then, the man called D.B. Cooper will remain one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in modern history. His plane landed safely. The passengers returned home. The investigation continued for decades. But D.B. Cooper never returned. He disappeared into the stormy night and became a mystery that the world still cannot solve. And this is where the mystery of D.B. Cooper ends, but the questions still remain. Who was he? Was Dan Cooper his real name? Did he survive that dangerous jump? Did he escape with the money and live a normal life? Or did he disappear forever somewhere in the dark forests below? The plane landed safely. The passengers returned home. The FBI searched for many years. Thousands of people were questioned. Many suspects were investigated. But no one could prove the true identity of D.B. Cooper. Only a small amount of the ransom money was ever found. The parachute was never discovered. His body was never found. And most of the money completely disappeared. Maybe D.B. Cooper was a highly trained man who planned everything carefully. Maybe he was simply lucky. Or maybe his plan failed on the same night he jumped from the plane. We may never know the complete truth. But that is exactly why this story is still remembered. It is not only a story about a hijacking. It is a story about an unknown man who entered history for only a few hours and then vanished without leaving a clear answer behind. And that is why the mystery of D.B. Cooper still feels alive. This was not just a story about a plane. This was not just a story about money. This was not just a story about one man escaping. This was a mystery that began like a normal day and ended like a legend. One man walked into an airport. He did not look dangerous. He did not look afraid. He did not look confused. He looked calm. He looked ordinary. He looked like a businessman who was simply going from one city to another. People passed him. Workers saw him. Passengers walked near him. But nobody knew what was inside his mind. Nobody knew what was inside his briefcase. Nobody knew that this quiet man was about to become one of the most mysterious figures in American history. He bought a ticket. He used the name Dan Cooper. He boarded the plane. He sat near the back. He ordered a drink. He smoked a cigarette. Everything looked normal. And that is what makes this story so strange. Sometimes history does not begin with a loud sound. Sometimes history begins quietly, with one man, one seat, one briefcase, and one secret plan. Then he gave a note to the flight attendant. At first it looked like a simple note, maybe just a message, maybe something ordinary. But when the note was read, everything changed. He said he had a bomb. He showed wires inside his briefcase. He demanded $200,000. He demanded 4 parachutes. He wanted the plane to land in Seattle, and he wanted his demands to be completed. From that moment, a normal flight became a hijacking. But Cooper did not behave like a wild criminal. He did not shout. He did not run. He did not lose control. He stayed calm. That calmness made him even more mysterious. He was sitting there quietly while police, airline workers, pilots, and officials were trying to understand what to do. Inside the plane, the passengers did not fully know what was happening. They were told there was a delay. They were told there was a small problem. But the real problem was sitting near the back of the plane. A man with a briefcase. A man with a plan. A man who was controlling the situation without making noise. Then the plane landed. The money was given. The parachutes were given. And Cooper released the passengers. This is another reason the story became famous. He did not harm the passengers. He let them go. But the danger was still real. The crime was still serious. The fear was still there. Then the plane took off again. Only a few crew members stayed on board. The night was dark. The weather was cold. The plane was flying through a dangerous sky. Below the plane, there were forests, rivers, mountains, and empty land. It was not an easy place to jump. It was not a safe place to land. It was not a simple escape. But D.B. Cooper had already decided. Somewhere in that dark sky, he moved toward the back of the plane. The Boeing 727 had rear stairs. Those stairs could open from the back, and this detail became one of the most important parts of the mystery. Cooper opened the stairs. Cold air rushed inside. The plane was moving. The night was waiting. And then, with a parachute and a bag of money, he jumped. Just imagine that moment. A man standing at the back of a plane. Behind him, a crime. Below him, darkness. In his hand, money. On his back, a parachute. In front of him, the unknown. Then he stepped out. He disappeared into the night. And after that, history lost him. No confirmed body, no confirmed identity, no final confession, no clear ending, only questions. Did he survive the jump? Did he land safely? Did he lose the money? Did he die in the forest? Did he escape and live a normal life? Was he trained? Was he lucky? Was he desperate? Was he foolish? Was he a criminal genius? Or was he a man who planned something dangerous but never fully understood the risk? Nobody knows for sure. And that is the power of this mystery. Because many crimes are solved. Many criminals are caught. Many stories get an ending. But this story did not end with an answer. It ended with silence. A man jumped from a plane. The sky swallowed him. The forest kept its secret, and the world was left with one question. Who was D.B. Cooper? Years passed. Investigators searched. Experts studied. People gave tips. Suspects were named. Theories were created. Some people believed he survived. Some believed he died that night. Some believed he had military training. Some believed he was only lucky. Some believed he was helped by someone. Some believed he planned everything perfectly. But every theory had a problem. Every answer had a missing piece. Every suspect had a question mark, and the mystery refused to die. Then, years later, some of the ransom money was found near a river. That discovery made the story even more mysterious. If Cooper survived, why was some money left behind? If he died, where was the rest of the evidence? If the money reached the river later, how did it get there? Again, one clue created more questions. That is what makes the D.B. Cooper case different. Every time people think they are close to the answer, the mystery becomes deeper. It is like a door that opens into another door. A clue appears. Then a new question appears. A suspect looks possible. Then doubt appears. A theory sounds strong. Then one missing detail breaks it. And so D.B. Cooper remains a mystery. But we must remember something very important. This story is not about praising crime. Hijacking is wrong. It is dangerous. It can put innocent people in fear. It can destroy lives. It can create panic and trauma. No mystery should make us forget that. D.B. Cooper may sound like a legend today, but the event itself was serious and dangerous. Real people were on that plane. Real fear was involved. Real laws were broken. So this story should not inspire crime. It should inspire curiosity. It should make us think about investigation, history, human behavior, planning, risk, and the strange power of unanswered questions. Because D.B. Cooper became famous not only because of what he did, he became famous because of what nobody could prove after that. Nobody could prove who he really was. Nobody could prove exactly where he landed. Nobody could prove whether he lived or died. Nobody could close the story with full confidence. And when a story has no final answer, people keep coming back to it. They read it again. They study it again. They discuss it again. They ask the same question again. Who was he? What happened to him? How can a man jump from a plane and disappear? Maybe that is why this mystery still feels powerful. Because human beings do not like unfinished stories. We want answers. We want endings. We want truth. We want the final piece. But D.B. Cooper gave the world a story without a final page. He entered history quietly. He escaped dramatically. And then he disappeared completely. No goodbye, no explanation, no final message. Only a name, only a jump, only a mystery. And maybe that is why people still remember him. Not because he was the strongest criminal, not because he was the richest robber, not because he was the most dangerous man, but because he became a question that nobody could answer. A man vanished from the sky, but his mystery stayed on the ground. It stayed in books. It stayed in documentaries. It stayed in investigations. It stayed in conversations. It stayed in the minds of people who love unsolved stories. And even today, after so many years, the name D.B. Cooper still sounds mysterious. Maybe one day someone will find the final truth. Maybe a hidden record will appear. Maybe a family secret will come out. Maybe old evidence will finally speak. Maybe science will answer what people could not answer before. Or maybe this mystery will stay unsolved forever. Maybe the forest will keep its secret. Maybe the sky will keep its silence. Maybe D.B. Cooper will remain exactly what he became that night. A shadow in history. A man without a confirmed ending. A mystery without a final answer. And that is the strange beauty of this story. Most people disappear from history because nobody remembers them. But D.B. Cooper disappeared, and because of that, everybody remembered him. He vanished from the world. But the question never vanished. Who was D.B. Cooper? Did he survive? Did he die? Did he walk away into a new life? Or did the dark forest take him forever? We may never know. But one thing is clear. Some mysteries are solved by evidence. Some mysteries are solved by time. And some mysteries become legends because the answer never comes. D.B. Cooper jumped from the plane, but the mystery never landed. Now the final question is for you. Do you think D.B. Cooper survived? Or do you believe he died during the jump? Share your theory in the comments. This video was created for education, English listening practice, and historical storytelling. It does not support or encourage crime or dangerous actions. So keep learning, keep questioning, keep practicing English. And if you enjoyed this real mystery, subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories explained in simple English.